So I've been trying to go over some of the proof I have of this neurological disorder and how far it goes back. And there needs to be like witnesses or doctors there or family members there who account this. It makes it a lot easier. I mean, I have many accounts of me having this, and I have many accounts of my mother doing things she wasn't supposed to. But if it's just me and her, it doesn't do me very good. Please excuse the noise. The landscaper's finally mowing the grass in the background. But anyways, and there's one that I'm sure my nephew remembers for sure. Maybe my brother remembers it. I'm not 100% sure if he would or not. I know my mother remembers me coming home with these injuries, and my father might as well, but because of his age, I'm sure that his memory's spotty. But here's one of an example of the numbness or the way I can't feel my skin. This is part of the neurological disorder, and this goes back to the night that it happened to me, but we're going to go over that now. Man, that noise is driving me nuts. Um, I'm not a big fan of loud noises. Not really a big deal, but it shoots like a taser like feeling through my body. But that's not the example. So, a good friend that was really good to me and my brother used to bring me to play tennis. We used to play tennis on this free park. It was called Shed Park. It used to have green courts, and we used to have quite a bit of fun, and they're some of the best memories I have. Well, one time we went down there, it was me and my nephew. We go down to Shed Park to play tennis. I had a little bit of difficulty, but I always put in more effort. I didn't have as many skills at moving my body. I didn't have as many skills at trying to aim. I didn't have as many skills or practice playing the game. But I was always putting in 110%, and I always went after every single type of shot I could. But that's not the point. The point here is one time we went down there, and me and my nephew decided to play a game of tennis. But there was a problem. I had sandals on. Well, I tried to play and the sandals would trip me. I couldn't run. Well, most people would say, well, you can't play then, right? Well, no, I decided to take my sandals off and play barefoot. Now, keep in mind, this tennis court is basically sandpaper. It's basically one big cement court of sandpaper. It's almost as coarse sandpaper. That's pretty much the equivalent. So me and my nephew start playing tennis. I'm barefoot, and we start playing. Now, the skin starts getting removed from the bottom of my feet to the point where they're raw and bleeding. And I don't feel it. I don't feel much pain. I continue playing. I continue playing tennis, and I remove more skin from the bottom of my feet. But the skin is so numb. I mean, yeah, I feel a lot of pain and infections or things that are deeper and under my skin or that hit my nervous system, I will feel. But as far as my skin goes, I have a lot of, I guess you would call it nerve damage or lack of sensitivity. And that has to do with the neurological disorder. I have less sensitivity in my skin. And I'm able to play multiple matches, multiple games with my nephew with barefoot, and I'm talking about the skin is getting removed. Like they are bleeding bad. But I'm not noticing. I'm still playing tennis. I'm still playing. The skin's getting removed from my feet. I'm still playing. The skin's getting removed from my feet. I'm still playing. And I'm smiling. I'm not noticing anything about my skin getting removed to a point that they're bleeding. After we're done playing tennis, I sit down and I take a look at my feet. Now at this point, I don't really, I'm not caring much. I got to play a good game of tennis. I got to have fun with my nephew. I'm big into family. I'm big into type of making connections with the family. All I ever wanted was to have a family in a home. Well, I have a nephew here, and I'm playing tennis with him. So fantastic. But after I'm done playing tennis barefoot, and I've been removing my skin for a couple hours, or let's say an hour or more, I look at my feet, and Oh boy, I've removed all the skin from my feet until there's just the raw underlayer of pink bleeding skin. This is actually not skin, it's like what's under your skin. It's like if you took sandpaper and took a sanding machine to your skin for an hour. You would eventually remove the skin and you get that red, bleeding, really raw pink stuff. It's it's still considered a bottom layer of skin, it is, but it's not like your outer skin. And I didn't even feel that I was removing my skin to the point that they were bleeding. Anybody else would have been in extreme pain doing this. But instead, I didn't. I ended up bandaging up my feet for a week. And yeah, I was able to play tennis barefoot and remove the flesh from my feet. And I barely felt it at all. I only felt it later, like a week later or days later. At the moment of when I was removing my flesh from the bottom of my feet, I just kept on going with a little sensitivity to what I was doing. This was another sign of a neurological disorder. This is in the nervous system. And I know when this started. It started at age 5 to 7 in Westford when I was given a cocktail of pills and then I was not brought to the ambulance, as well as there was a lot of mental behaviors from my mother that continued after that. She was trying to establish a Social Security case. That was her plan. It was to make her and my father's life easier. It was. She was a nurse. She had the medications on hand, all these different drugs. She knew how to convince a doctor what to do. She knew that if we traveled, that it would be very hard for anybody to catch on. As well as if she established this Social Security case, she would have to keep making me look disabled in many different ways to keep the money flowing. Because they're too old to keep, to basically support me after 18. So this was a way to get, support for themselves to have this child, as well as when I'm 18, they don't have to deal with me. And this plan was created way before I was even 7 years old. I mean, she had this plan in her head. And this is messed up. It is. And here's another example of me doing something where I had little feeling. And I got seriously injured on the bottom of my feet. I mean, they were bleeding. They had to get bandaged quite a bit. They were blistered, awful, neck the following week. It was horrific. Looking at them was horrific. And I can't believe that I was able to play all that time tennis with my nephew, barefoot on a sandy, well, it wasn't sandy, it was cement that's like sandpaper, to the point where it removed my flesh. And I had little sensitivity to this. Anybody else try to do this, they wouldn't be able to do it. Nobody. I dare you to play on that same tennis court with that same sandpaper-like texture and remove your flesh like I did to the point where it's bleeding and red without feeling it. That's just not possible. It's only possible if you have a neurological disorder and you have some type of nervous system issue. And I'm sure my nephew remembers that. He probably also remembers me jumping into a pool and not even feeling my tendon or the back of my heel getting sliced open. They had to do multiple layers of stitches, some on the inside, some on the outside, and these are two separate events. Keep that in mind. One, I'm on a tennis court removing the flesh from the bottom of my feet. Another one, I'm jumping into a pool and I slice the back of my foot and not even notice it. These events show that I have little sensitivity to pain on my skin. Only my skin. While other parts of me have more sensitivity and cause a taser-like feeling to go all the way through my body. And I know when this started, I know what was being done to me. I have PTSD from it. I have PTSD from what happened to me in New Mexico. I have PTSD from what happened to me in Westford. I have PTSD from living with this mother. I have PTSD from what the kids were doing from me. I have clear-cut memories of some of the staff giving me double doses of meds. I mean, these are traumatic events. They don't call it PTSD for nothing. It's traumatic for a reason, because it is. It sticks with you for life. I mean, I'm never going to be able to forget them, but that doesn't mean I can't move on. It doesn't mean I can't get help with it. I should be able to get proper medical care, but I see what I'm up against. I really do. Most likely, it's going to be hard for me ever to get proper medical care. I'll probably die with this disorder never getting properly treated. I probably will. I'll probably never receive Social Security, even if I live to 50 or 60 years old, a cripple. Because what's really wrong with me is hard to prove, especially with people who wanted to cover it up. When you try to cover up your mistakes, undoing that is difficult, definitely. But there are people out there that can support what happened. They have memories of their own the same as me. I don't know if my nephew remembers this, but he probably does. He probably remembers me playing tennis with him and removing the flesh from the bottom of my feet. He probably remembers me jumping into a pool and having the back of my foot sliced open and feeling nothing. He probably remembers me trying to drink before moving my body. He probably remembers my mother getting drunk and going into her crazy rants. He probably remembers her psychotic behavior. My brother probably remembers some of the psychotic behavior. There are witnesses who were there to testify to these things. Not that they will. But hopefully one day they'll get together with me and have a discussion about what happened to me and we can move forward. But if people still continue to go, put themselves in denial, if people try to cover up their own mistakes, people could also try to continue harming me. I wouldn't be surprised if my father and his new wife try to use a lawyer to put me in jail for speaking up about this. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make this worse. But what I really need is for this to be proven true, because it is true. I need people to collaborate and try to fully understand what was going on. What I mean by collaborate, I mean use their own memory to try to discuss with other individuals who knew the situation and try to figure out exactly what they remember. Now, I have multiple examples of what I remember. I have multiple examples of what my mother was saying and doing. And I bet my father has some too. Because when I was in the program, she just didn't get cured of her mental illness. Of course not. These behaviors probably continued when I wasn't around. So I'm sure that if we discussed this fully and people actually cared enough to try to do something about it, that maybe I could get the right medications for seizures and neurological disorders in the nervous system. This is bad. That was a fun day. I remember it's a great memory spending time with my nephew. I love my father. I love my nephew. I love my brother. I love, all my family, really. But I don't love what happened to me. I have no love for crippling children. That is wrong. I don't care who you are. But if you give drugs to a child who doesn't need them, if you try to push a narrative to get money for Social Security just so you can have an easier life, that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And the only people that are blameless really in this are my brother, my nephew. They're blameless. And my sister was definitely smart enough to stay out of my business and my mother's business. Not that it helped me at all, but it probably helped her not have to deal or try to process the crazy behaviors. If she did spend more time with me and my mother, she might have realized that there was something seriously wrong going on. I'm sure that they all are very good people, and I have love for them. And my father, he's a great person, but he made a really big mistake. He allowed his second wife to hurt a child in incredibly dangerous ways. And that needs to come out. There needs to be something done about that. I can't give up my life just to keep him happy. That's totally psychotic. I cannot keep on. I've spent 25 years with this without the help I need. And now he wants me to continue just keeping my mouth shut? No. I've spoke up for 25 years at the doctors and I didn't even know back then. I just knew it was wrong what was being done to me. I didn't know exactly what was being done to me. I knew that I was being given drugs like Epicac, extra amounts of it. I knew that the amount of drugs that I was being given by her was causing bad reactions in my body. I knew she was lying about me in weird and unusual ways. But I didn't know what all that meant. When I was an adult, after studying all these different circumstances, after talking with other people that have gone through similar type of stuff, I understand fully what happened. I'm not stupid in any sense of the word. No, not at all. I was just not given a proper education, and I had a mother with a mental disorder that wasn't getting it treated. And then she ended up projecting that onto me in many ways. as well as there was all different types of drugs being given to me that shouldn't have been given to me. Some I was prescribed, some I wasn't prescribed, some that were over the counter. And that's wrong. I don't care who you are. You don't drug a child just to get Social Security. It can do permanent damage to their body. And that should have been known back then. And if I keep this to myself, then I'm doing a dishonesty. This is the truth. This is what happened. And I need to tell people what happened. It might help other parents that are struggling. Maybe it will stop some other kid from suffering the way I did. But I wanted to just go over, yeah, I had the skin removed from the bottom of my feet from playing tennis, and it barely fazed me.